The orbital defense platforms around Europa Colony died silently in the vacuum of space. Captain Marcus Drake watched from the bridge of the UES Hyperion as the massive Nexari warships tore through humanity's outermost defenses like paper. His weathered face, marked by 2 decades of service in the United Earth Defense Force, remained stoic even as his heart raced. "Status report," he commanded, his deep voice steady despite the chaos unfolding before them. Lieutenant Zara Hassan, her dark eyes fixed on the tactical display, responded without looking up. "3 defense platforms destroyed, sir. The Nexari fleet is advancing on an attack vector. 8 capital ships, at least 20 support vessels." Drake's fingers tightened on the armrests of his command chair. The Hyperion was humanity's newest warship, the pride of the fleet, but even she couldn't stand against such overwhelming odds. Not alone. "All hands battle stations," he ordered. "Lieutenant Commander Wilson, get me a secure channel to Earth Command." The communications officer, a young man with prematurely graying hair, worked his console frantically. "Sir, the quantum entanglement array is being jammed. We're cut off." Europa Colony housed over 2 million civilians. The thought of those lives in the hands of the Nexari made Drake's blood run cold. The aliens had appeared 6 months ago, emerging from the depths of unexplored space with technology far beyond humanity's understanding. Their demands were simple: submit or be eliminated. "Sir," Zara's voice cut through his thoughts, detecting unusual energy readings at the edge of the system. I've never seen anything like this." The main viewscreen shifted, showing a point of space that seemed to bend and twist. Light itself appeared to fold inward, creating a vortex of impossible colors. From within this cosmic maelstrom, something emerged. The ship that appeared was unlike anything humanity had ever built. It was massive, easily dwarfing even the Nexari capital ships. Its hull seemed to shimmer with an inner light, covered in patterns that shifted and changed like living circuitry. The design was both organic and geometric, suggesting an origin far beyond human understanding. "Unknown vessel," Wilson reported, "approximately 3 kilometers in length. No matching configurations in our database." Drake stood, his eyes fixed on the mysterious ship. "Are they broadcasting?" Before Wilson could answer, every screen on the bridge flickered to life with the same image: a humanoid figure composed of shifting light and shadow. When it spoke, its voice resonated not just through the speakers, but seemed to echo in their minds. "Children of Earth," the figure said, its form rippling like water, "we have watched your struggle. You face extinction at the hands of those who would deny you your destiny. We are the guardians created by those who came before, your ancestors." The bridge crew exchanged glances of confusion and hope. Drake stepped forward, his voice firm. "I am Captain Marcus Drake of the United Earth Defense Force. What do you mean by ancestors?" "Long ago," the figure continued, "humanity reached for the stars. They achieved greatness, but in their pride they fell. We were created to preserve their legacy, to watch over their descendants until they were ready to reclaim their birthright. The Nexari threatened that destiny." As if in response to the Guardian's words, the Nexari fleet turned their attention to the new arrival. Energy weapons flared across space, powerful enough to shatter planets. The mysterious ship didn't evade. Instead, the attack seemed to pass through it like light through crystal. "Your time has come," the Guardian declared. "We offer you a choice. Stand with us, prove yourselves worthy of your inheritance, or remain as you are at the mercy of those who would destroy you." Drake didn't hesitate. "We stand with you." The Guardian's form solidified slightly, taking on an almost approving aspect. "Then witness the power that was once yours." The mysterious ship moved with impossible grace. Points of light appeared across its hull, and in an instant, space itself seemed to twist around the Nexari vessels. 3 of their capital ships simply ceased to exist, while others found themselves pulled apart by forces beyond human comprehension. "Captain," Zara reported, her voice filled with awe, "the Nexari fleet is in disarray. They're retreating." But Drake's attention was fixed on the Guardian. "Why now? Why not come to us sooner?" "Because now you are ready to learn, to grow, to remember," the figure replied. The Nexari are but the first test. There are others in the galaxy who would deny humanity its place among the stars. We cannot fight your battles for you, but we can teach you to fight them yourselves. The mysterious ship's hull pulsed with energy, and suddenly the Hyperion's computers came alive with new information. Schematics, theories, and technologies beyond their current understanding began flooding their databases. "This is but a fraction of what awaits you," the Guardian said. "Your journey begins now, children of Earth. The stars remember their first masters, and they await your return." As the crew of the Hyperion absorbed this revelation, Drake realized that everything humanity thought they knew about their place in the universe had changed. They weren't latecomers to the cosmic stage. They were returning champions, armed with the legacy of those who had come before. The war for humanity's future had begun, but for the first time since the Nexari appeared, hope burned brighter than fear. The mysterious warship hung in space like a promise of things to come, a bridge between humanity's forgotten past and its uncertain future. Drake squared his shoulders and turned to his crew. "Send word to all Earth forces. The tide has turned, and it's time humanity remembered who we really are." The ancient warship loomed before them in the void, its crystalline surface reflecting the light of distant stars. Dr. Olivia Winters stood at the observation deck of the Hyperion, her breath catching as she studied the impossible geometries of the vessel. After 3 weeks of careful approach and preliminary scans, they were finally ready to board. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Captain Drake's voice startled her from her reverie. He joined her at the window, his reflection ghostly against the backdrop of space. "It defies everything we thought we knew about physics," Olivia replied, tucking a strand of silver-streaked black hair behind her ear. "The energy readings alone. Marcus, if what the Guardian said is true, if this really is human technology." "Then everything changes," Drake finished. He turned to face her, his expression grave. "That's why Earth Command sent you. You're the best xenoarchaeologist we have, even if some of your theories got you laughed out of academia." Olivia's lips twisted in a wry smile. "You mean my crazy papers about advanced human civilizations predating recorded history? Funny how those don't seem so crazy anymore." Their conversation was interrupted by Lieutenant Hassan's voice over the intercom. "Captain, boarding team is assembled in Hangar Bay 3. Dr. Winters, your presence is requested." The hangar bay hummed with nervous energy as Olivia joined the team. Lieutenant Commander Raj Patel, their chief of security, was briefing his squad. His cybernetic eye glowed faintly as he reviewed tactical data. "Remember," Raj emphasized, "we don't know what we're walking into. The Guardian may have helped us, but that ship is still full of technology we barely understand. Stay alert." The journey across the void in their shuttle was silent, each person lost in their own thoughts. As they approached, panels on the ancient warship's hull shifted and realigned, creating an opening large enough for their craft to enter. "It's inviting us in," Olivia whispered, her hands trembling with excitement as she gripped her datapad. The internal docking bay was vast, easily large enough to house several ships the size of the Hyperion. As the boarding team exited their shuttle, their boots clicked against a floor made of some crystalline material that seemed to pulse with inner light. "Life support is active," Raj reported, checking his readings. "Atmosphere is Earth standard. Gravity at 1G, it's like it was waiting for us." Olivia activated her scanning equipment, watching in amazement as data streamed across her display. "These readings. The entire ship is made of some kind of programmable matter. It's not just responding to us, it's adapting to our presence." They moved deeper into the ship, following corridors that seemed to form ahead of them and dissolve behind them. The walls were covered in shifting patterns that Olivia realized were actually streams of data, written in a language that looked tantalizingly familiar. "This is impossible," she muttered, recording everything. "These symbols, they're Proto-Indo-European but evolved in ways we never imagined. This isn't alien technology, it's human technology that developed along a completely different path." A holographic interface suddenly materialized before them, causing Raj's security team to raise their weapons. The Guardian's luminous form took shape, more defined than during their first encounter. "You have questions," it stated, its voice resonating through their minds. "We offer answers, but knowledge has a price. Are you prepared to pay it?" "What price?" Drake asked, stepping forward. "Truth," the Guardian replied. "The truth about your past, about why humanity's greatness was hidden from you, and about the enemies that still wait in the dark between stars." Olivia couldn't contain herself. "The civilization that built you, our ancestors, what happened to them?" The Guardian's form shifted, and suddenly they were surrounded by a three-dimensional projection of ancient history. They watched as great cities rose among the stars, as humanity spread across the galaxy, building wonders that defied imagination. "Your ancestors achieved what you would call godhood," the Guardian explained. "They reshaped planets, harnessed the power of suns, and danced among the stars. But they also learned that they were not alone, and not all that dwells in the cosmos welcomes the rise of new powers." The projection changed, showing terrible battles against forces that hurt to look at directly. "The Nexari you face today are but shadows of the true threats that lurk in the void. Your ancestors faced beings that had already been ancient when the first stars were born." "What happened?" Drake asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. "They fell," the Guardian said simply. "Not in battle, but by choice. When they understood what their continued presence meant for the younger races, for the future of the galaxy itself, they made a decision. They would step back, allow their civilization to fade, and let their children, you, grow naturally, untainted by the weight of their legacy." "They deliberately reduced themselves?" Olivia asked, incredulous. "Erased their own history?" "They left guardians," the Luminous being corrected. "And they left their knowledge, their power, hidden in places like this ship, waiting for the day their children would be ready to reclaim it. But that power cannot simply be given, it must be earned." Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the ship. Lieutenant Hassan's voice crackled over their comms. "Captain, multiple Nexari vessels just emerged from FTL. They're on an attack vector." The Guardian's form stabilized, becoming almost solid. "The first test begins. This vessel contains the power to defeat them, but only if you can unlock it, only if you prove worthy of your inheritance." The projection vanished, leaving them standing in a vast chamber filled with control interfaces they barely understood. Through the ship's walls, now turned transparent, they could see the Nexari fleet approaching, weapons charged. "Dr. Winters," Drake said, his voice tight with urgency, "I hope you're a quick study." Olivia's hands flew over the nearest interface, her mind racing as she tried to decipher the evolved language of her ancestors. They had minutes at most before the Nexari would be in firing range. Around her, the ancient warship hummed with power, waiting to be unleashed if only they could figure out how. The true test of humanity's worthiness to reclaim their legacy had begun, and failure meant extinction. Chief Engineer Jun Nakamura stood in the ancient warship's engine room, surrounded by technology that shouldn't exist. The quantum core pulsed with impossible energy, its crystalline structure defying known physics. His augmented vision implants struggled to process what he was seeing, throwing up error messages faster than he could dismiss them. "The power output is off the charts," he muttered into his comm, fingers dancing across holographic interfaces. "Whatever the ancients built this ship to fight, it wasn't just the Nexari." The battle against the latest Nexari attack fleet had proven that. With Dr. Winter's breakthrough in understanding the ship's basic systems, they had not just defeated the enemy, they had demolished them. But Jun knew they had barely scratched the surface of the vessel's true capabilities. "Jun," Captain Drake's voice crackled through the comm, "we're picking up something strange. Energy signatures are appearing throughout the ship, similar to the Guardian's manifestation, but different." Before Jun could respond, the air around him shimmered. Unlike the Guardian's usual appearances, these manifestations were more defined, almost solid. They took the form of figures in advanced suits of armor, their designs both familiar and alien. One of them stepped forward, its helmet retracting to reveal a face that could have been human, yet somehow wasn't quite. "The awakening protocols have begun," it announced, its voice carrying harmonics that made Jun's augments buzz. We are the Sentinels, the warrior guardians of humanity's legacy. Jun's hand instinctively went to his sidearm, but the figure made a gesture of peace. We mean you no harm, Jun Nakamura. We have watched as you and your people proved yourselves worthy of the first trials. First trials? Jun's eyes narrowed. You mean there's more? The Guardian showed you fragments of your history. Another Sentinel spoke, its armor shifting colors like liquid metal. But knowing history is not enough. You must understand why your ancestors made their choice, and why their power cannot simply be reclaimed, it must be reborn through you. The engine room's walls became transparent, showing them the vast expanse of space. But this view was different from normal space. Jun could see something else. Layers of reality he had never imagined existed, teeming with both wonder and horror. Your ancestors didn't just master technology, the first Sentinel explained. They discovered the fundamental nature of consciousness itself. They learned that thought shapes reality, that belief has power, that the universe is far stranger than mere physics can explain. Images flashed around them. Ancient humans wielding powers that looked like magic, reshaping planets with a thought, traveling between dimensions, achieving what seemed like immortality. But with that knowledge came understanding, another Sentinel continued. They saw that their very existence was changing the younger races, robbing them of their own paths to enlightenment. Some races worshipped them as gods, others feared them as demons. The natural development of countless civilizations was being warped by their presence. Jun watched as the images showed the ancient humans' deliberate withdrawal from the galactic stage. They chose to step back, he said, understanding dawning. Not out of weakness, but out of wisdom. Yes, the first Sentinel nodded. But they knew that one day their children would need to rise again, not as conquerors or gods, but as guardians themselves. The Nexari are part of a greater darkness stirring in the galaxy. Ancient forces are awakening, powers that once drove your ancestors to their greatest achievements and their greatest sacrifices. The engine room filled with new holographic displays, showing systems and capabilities that made Jun's enhanced mind real. This ship, he breathed, it's not just a weapon, is it? It's a key. It is one of many, the Sentinel confirmed. Seeds planted throughout the galaxy, waiting for humanity to prove itself ready. The Guardian tested your worth. We are here to begin your true education. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the ship. Lieutenant Hassan's voice cut through. Multiple quantum ruptures detected. These readings, they're like nothing we've ever seen. The Sentinel's armor shifted, becoming more combat-ready. The enemy sensed the awakening. They come not to conquer, but to prevent humanity's rebirth. Through the transparent walls, Jun watched as reality itself seemed to tear open. What emerged from those wounds in space were not Nexari ships. They were something else, something ancient and terrible, their very presence making the laws of physics scream in protest. What are they? Jun demanded, even as his augments tried to make sense of what he was seeing. The reason your ancestors built this ship, the Sentinel replied grimly. The reason they seeded the galaxy with weapons and guardians. The reason humanity must rise again, not for power or glory, but because the alternative is the end of all things. The ancient warship system surged to life, responding to the threat. Jun felt knowledge flooding into his mind, gift from the Sentinels, technical understanding beyond anything humanity had achieved since their fall. He knew, without doubt, that what happened next would determine not just humanity's fate, but the fate of every race in the galaxy. Captain, he called into his comm, his fingers already dancing across the newly comprehensible interfaces. I know what we need to do, but you're not going to believe it. The ship's quantum core pulsed with power as the true battle for humanity's future began. Above them, reality continued to tear, and the ancient enemy descended upon them like a storm of cosmic horror. But this time, humanity would not face them alone. The Sentinels moved into position, their armor now fully activated, ready to teach humanity how to fight a war that had been raging since the dawn of consciousness itself. The legacy of the ancient humans was not just technology or power. It was a responsibility to stand against the darkness between stars. The Nexari fleet emerged from hyperspace like a swarm of metallic locusts, their ship's black hulls absorbing all light. Lieutenant Commander Raj Patel watched from his tactical station aboard the ancient warship as his cybernetic eye calculated their odds of survival. They weren't good. 37 capital ships, he reported to Captain Drake. They've brought their entire third fleet. They're not taking any chances this time. Dr. Winters hadn't left the control interface for hours, her fingers flying over the crystalline surfaces as she fought to understand the ship's weapons systems. "The power is here," she muttered, frustration evident in her voice. "We just need to figure out how to access it." The Guardian's ethereal form manifested beside them. "The weapons you seek cannot simply be activated. They must recognize you as worthy wielders. Your ancestors built safeguards into every system. This ship will not unleash its full potential until you prove yourselves." "Prove ourselves how?" Drake demanded. "By dying." "By understanding," the Guardian replied. "By showing that you grasp not just the how of this technology, but the why. Power without wisdom destroyed countless civilizations before yours. Your ancestors would not let that happen again." The Nexari ships moved into attack formation. Their energy weapons charged, creating an eerie purple glow against the void of space. They had learned from their previous defeat and adapted their tactics. Lieutenant Hassan's voice cut through the tension. "Multiple targeting locks, they're going to hit us from all sides." Raj's cybernetic systems interfaced with the ancient ship's sensors, giving him a three-dimensional view of the battlefield. "They're trying to overload our shields with concentrated fire. Standard Nexari tactics, hit hard enough and fast enough that nothing can survive." "But we're not nothing," Dr. Winters said suddenly, her eyes widening with realization. "Guardian, the ship systems, they're not just technology, are they? They're alive, conscious." The Guardian's form brightened. "You begin to understand. Your ancestors did not build machines, they grew them, nurtured them, taught them. This vessel is as much a living being as it is a weapon of war." The first Nexari salvo hit them like a thunderstorm of plasma and exotic particles. The ship's shields held, but Raj could feel the strain through his cybernetic interface. They couldn't survive many more hits like that. Dr. Winters placed her hands flat on the control interface, closing her eyes. "We've been trying to command it," she said softly. "We should have been trying to communicate with it." As if in response to her words, the ship's internal lights pulsed. The crystalline surfaces beneath her hands grew warm, and patterns of light danced across them like neural pathways. "Yes," the Guardian encouraged. "Speak to it. Let it know you understand its purpose." Drake stepped forward, placing his hand next to Winters. "We're not here to conquer," he said firmly. "We're here to protect, to preserve, to ensure life has a chance to grow and thrive." Raj joined them, his cybernetic eye detecting new energy patterns emerging throughout the ship. "We face this enemy not for glory or power, but because someone must stand against the darkness." The ship responded. Crystalline structures throughout the vessel began to glow with inner light. The very hull seemed to come alive, patterns of energy flowing like blood through veins. Raj's cybernetic systems were suddenly flooded with targeting data, weapon configurations, and battle strategies evolved over centuries of warfare. "Multiple weapons systems coming online," Hassan reported, her voice filled with awe. "Energy readings are off the charts." The Nexari launched their second attack wave, but this time the ancient warship was ready. Reality itself seemed to bend around their energy weapons, redirecting their fire back at them. Ships that had survived centuries of warfare were torn apart by forces they couldn't comprehend. "It's not just fighting," Raj observed through his enhanced senses. "It's teaching us, showing us not just how to destroy, but when to show mercy, when to offer peace." The Guardian's form grew more distinct. "This is the wisdom your ancestors wished you to learn. Any species can build weapons. Few understand when not to use them." As if to prove the point, the ship extended its defenses to protect a damaged Nexari vessel, preventing its reactor from going critical and saving thousands of lives. The message was clear. Victory did not require annihilation. The remaining Nexari ships began to retreat, their confident attack turning into a desperate withdrawal. But before they could escape, the ancient warship projected a message, not in words or signals, but in pure thought and emotion. It showed the Nexari a vision of cooperation, of a galaxy where different species work together against greater threats. "We're receiving a transmission," Hassan announced, surprised. "The Nexari, they're requesting a ceasefire, they want to talk." Drake looked at the Guardian. "Is this what you wanted, for us to show mercy to our enemies?" "What we wanted," the Guardian replied, "was for you to show wisdom, to understand that true power lies not in the ability to destroy, but in the choice to preserve. Your ancestors learned this lesson too late. You have learned it just in time." The ancient warship hung in space, its crystalline hull now pulsing with steady, warm light. It had revealed only a fraction of its true capabilities, but that revelation had changed everything. Humanity had proven themselves worthy not just of the ship's power, but of their ancestors' legacy. "This is only the beginning," the Guardian said, its form starting to fade. "There are greater challenges ahead, greater threats to face, but you have taken the first step on the path your ancestors hoped you would find." As the Nexari ships maintained their distance, waiting for diplomatic channels to be established, the crew of the ancient warship began to understand. They had been tested not on their ability to fight, but on their capacity to show wisdom in victory. And in passing that test, they had opened the door to something far greater than mere military power. The real journey was just beginning. Reality burned around the ancient warship as Captain Marcus Drake watched the impossible unfold. The void creatures that had emerged from the quantum ruptures defied description, vast geometries of living darkness that hurt the mind to look upon. The Nexari fleet that had pursued them now seemed insignificant in comparison. "All hands battle stations," Drake ordered, his voice steady despite the chaos. "Jun, tell me you have something." In the engine room, Chief Engineer Nakamura worked alongside the Sentinels, his augmented mind processing the flood of ancient knowledge they had shared. "Captain, we've unlocked the ship's dimensional arrays. Dr. Winters is correlating the data now." Olivia's voice cut in from the research bay, excitement breaking through her professional tone. "The ship isn't just a weapon, it's a beacon. There are others out there, dozens of them, hidden throughout the galaxy, if we can activate them all at once. We can reawaken humanity's full legacy," Raj finished, his cybernetic eye glowing as he coordinated the security teams. "But those things out there aren't going to give us the chance." The void creatures attacked, their assault beyond conventional physics. Space itself warped around them, reality turning fluid and hostile. The ancient warship's defenses flared to life, crystalline shields deflecting attacks that should have annihilated normal matter. "Multiple targets approaching," Lieutenant Hassan reported from Tactical. "They're trying to surround us." The Sentinels moved with perfect coordination, their armor flowing like liquid metal as they interfaced with the ship systems. "The Void Hunters remember their old enemy," the lead Sentinel announced. "They remember how humanity once drove them back into the darkness between dimensions. They will not allow your species to rise again." Drake watched as one of the cosmic horrors reached out with appendages of pure darkness, trying to tear their ship apart. "Then we give them something new to remember. Jun, full power to the dimensional arrays. Dr. Winters, begin the activation sequence. Lieutenant Hassan, target their weak points, assuming they have any." The battle that followed defied conventional description. The ancient warship danced through space-time, its weapons firing beams of concentrated reality that cut through the void creature's impossible forms. The Sentinel's knowledge, combined with human intuition and determination, proved to be a devastating combination. But they were still outnumbered. For every void hunter they destroyed, two more emerged from the quantum ruptures. The ship's shields began to buckle under attacks that existed in dimensions humans had never imagined. "Captain," Olivia called out, her voice tight with urgency, "the beacon is charged, but someone needs to synchronize with the ship's consciousness to activate it. The Sentinels say. They say it has to be human, has to be voluntary." Drake understood immediately. What are the chances of survival? Unknown, the lead sentinel replied. Your ancestors performed similar synchronizations, but they had generations of preparation, the strain on an unprepared mind. I'll do it, Drake said, rising from his command chair. Marcus, no, Olivia protested. The neural feedback could kill you instantly. Better one life than all of humanity, Drake replied. He turned to his crew, pride swelling in his chest. Lieutenant Hassan, you have the con. Keep them off us long enough to complete the activation. Jun, Olivia, it's been an honor. The Sentinels led Drake to the ship's core chamber, where crystalline pillars pulsed with quantum energy. The air itself seemed alive with possibility. As he stepped onto the synchronization platform, Drake felt the weight of history pressing down on him. Your ancestors faced this same choice, the lead sentinel said softly. To accept power meant accepting responsibility for all that power might bring. Drake nodded. They chose to protect the galaxy's future, so do I. The synchronization began. Pain beyond imagination coursed through Drake's body as his consciousness expanded, touching the minds of ancient machines scattered throughout the stars. He saw through 1,000,000 sensors, felt the pulse of 1,000 quantum cores, understood finally the true scope of humanity's legacy. Through the agony, he activated the beacon. Across the galaxy, dormant ships awakened. Hidden facilities stirred to life. Quantum signals rippled through space-time, carrying the message, humanity has risen again. The Void Hunters sensed the change. Their attack became desperate, frenzied, but it was too late. The awakened ships converged on their position, each carrying their own sentinels, their own guardians. The hunters became the hunted. On the ancient warship's bridge, Olivia watched in awe as reality itself seemed to heal, the quantum ruptures sealing as the void creatures were driven back. The Nexari fleet, witnessing power they had never imagined, retreated in terror. When it was over, when the last Void Hunter had been banished back to its darkness between dimensions, they found Drake alive in the core chamber. Changed, but alive. His eyes now held the same otherworldly knowledge as the Sentinels. His consciousness expanded beyond mere human limits. The test is passed, the lead Sentinel announced. Humanity has proven itself worthy not just of power, but of the wisdom to use it. What happens now? Raj asked, helping Drake to his feet. Now, Drake replied, his voice carrying new harmonics. We do what our ancestors did. We protect, we guide, we stand guard against the darkness, but this time we do not stand alone. The ancient warship, now fully awakened, pulsed with power. Around it, the other ships gathered, a fleet of impossible power commanded by those who had chosen to sacrifice everything to protect not just humanity, but all life in the galaxy. A new era had dawned, but unlike their ancestors, this generation of humanity would not hide their light. They would shine it into the darkest corners of space, a beacon of hope for all species who faced the horrors that lurked between dimensions. The war was not over, it had only begun. But this time, humanity was ready. This time, they would not forget who they were or what they were meant to be, not conquerors, not gods, but guardians of all that was worth protecting in this vast and wonderful universe.